Get the brother Mike.
Right.
What's the question?
Hey, you snatched that brother's answer.
Yeah. I can remember the USC part.
He couldn't remember the other part.
No, I people that say title.
Now keep in mind the jus soli principle in naturalization versus the jus sanguinis principle in nationals. Meaning that when you understand the concept properly instructed, because remember our people don't get civics. That's deliberate under the Rockefeller Foundation that these people would be made docile. That's why they made the General Education Board in 1902 after they murdered Queen Winona in Philadelphia and moved the government to Washington. You got to know your real history. Are we clear? All right, where civics and etymology is not taught particularly to Aboriginal people, children. In other words, wherever your children are, they don't teach them etymology, which is necessary for reading. This is why they always arrogantly say, don't worry about them little pickaninnies. They will never compete because they can't read. And then they have shills or paid off Negro guys that play the Ebonics game and make them think that we've got something special. They can't read. Do you comprehend that? All right, so now as you know, when Ulysses Grant ran for president and beat Horace Greeley, which you must also know that history, because you need to know the Whiggamore Party and the operative Cottonwigs who've been running these agencies, which is the fundamental foundation of what you've been trained by paid off black leaders to tell you is racism when they know it's sanctum operations. They absolutely know that. Where they're given a 501c3 Skull and Bones agreement payoff not to talk this information to you. Are we clear? They're supposed to tell you keep hope alive and one of these days and that's what they're paid to do. While in secret, they got fezzes too. Most of them are 32-degree Masons. Do you understand? I mean, they know who you are, but they're paid to keep the black paradigm going on, which is a nom de guerre and makes you non-descendable. Now, when Ulysses Grant defeated Horace Greeley in the election of 62, understand that one of the first issues from his desk was to modify and alter the Naturalization Act of 1790. And this is why when you look in the law book and you look at free white persons and the truth of the status, that really is us, not Europeans. That's why they don't teach you that. And you notice that in 1870 was the modification year of the Naturalization Act. And when the Europeans in 54 to 63 took on the noble title of the defeated Moors, which is free white persons. That's when the Europeans start calling themselves white people, which they're not. It has nothing to do with complexion. Legal status. This is why dark priesthood promoted as identities in order to disassociate you with your status and the land. Are we clear? Now, in the Naturalization Act, as an interim, this is in the lesson of Horace Greeley. We won't go into this, but I just want to give this to support, you know, the question and the concept of country, etc., citizenship, geographical location of land, etc. Now, this is an excerpt from the Citizenship of the United States, expatriation, and this is, I interjected this in the lesson because we have a lot of scholars amongst us that try to dismiss this information, but once you have scholarship, you already know that they're compromised. You don't argue with them or you don't debate with them. You must know that there's opposition to the liberation of these people, meaning that you don't act surprised when you got Judases. You should understand it. Meaning that Rome doesn't rule here just by mere attitude because they don't like people. They rule because you have sellouts. You know, and the overseers didn't stop. In 1865, it just covered up. Do you understand? This is why anybody in a position of power in the world must be a Mason, is a man, and an Eastern Star, she's a woman, although she may be a daughter of Isis. to, any of the orders or the secret orders. Anybody that has any power that deals with any grand body of people like this big church down the street, guarantee he's a Mason. Somebody else fakes and all that stuff and soda dollar guys, and they're all Masons. And they all serve the Pope, not no Jesus. You understand? But the people don't know that because they're like little boys and girls. They're called sheeple. They're the flock of those shepherds pulling them into the pit. Anyway, full pit. But this is interjected, and this is from the record. This is direct record from citizenship of the United States, expatriation, etc., right? Now notice that this is operation on Naturalization Act. How many people don't pay attention to the country? That's right there, clear as day. What's the country? Morocco. And you look all major legislation operating here in the Americas, all major legislation, and you'll see that right there. Most people read past it. And I'm showing you that to dispense how things are exposed in people's faces, but yet they see and they don't see. They have eyes and they're not paying attention to details. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now notice this. Now keep in mind, you'll see a lot of people today, and when I say today, in these days, in trying to clean up their right of claim to their estate, whether they're going after the Cusick number on the back, on that red numbers on Social Security, authenticating the birth certificate, trying to claim some sovereign stuff to their estate, etc., and don't even know this, their position is incompetent. Do you understand? Look at this, put it this way. Those who know what you know and your degree as soon as you open your mouth and start talking. Particularly if you're talking data and are not in the spirit of what's really the knowledge of what takes place on the planet. Meaning that if you yourself had not become what you know, you will spiritually, or what you call through your breath, demonstrate to a high priest, you don't know the swell you're talking about, and you're incompetent, and you're subject. Are we clear? We're talking jurisdiction. But let's read this out and look what is obvious, right? Look what is obvious. And when Brother Abdullah was talking about the jus soli principle versus the jus sanguinis, most people are not aware of that line. Because on the surface, both of them represent in a manner of citizenship. And there's an assumption that does not exist. Only when you don't know better. And they play on that because they control the education. You see the point? So let's read this and look what is obvious. Citizenship of the United States, expatriation, etc. And it's just as it is in the book, right? Pages 459 and 460. That's for anybody who wants to do some research, and particularly for scholars who want to play these black games to justify whatever financial games they got going on for people trying to sell them some kind of package. Here we go. Chapter 5. Temporary provisions, Morocco. Mr. Phillip. Who's Mr. Phillip? Charged the affairs. To Mr. Root. Who is Mr. Root? The Secretary of State. And we ain't talking about Russia. We're talking about the United States. Now, what is this correspondence? What does this have anything to do with? What is being presented in this conversation? Here we go. Charged the affairs to Mr. Root, Secretary of State, August the 3rd, 1906. Now remember, they murdered Winona in 1902. And Rockefeller set up the General Education Board in 1902, and that's the basis from when they started making you docile in the name of education. All right? American Legion, Tangier, August the 3rd, 1906. Why was Obama talking about Treaty of Tripoli? Tangier, Tripoli, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. Oh, let's talk. Sir, there are strictly speaking no Moroccan laws relating to citizenship of Moorish subjects in Morocco. Fundamentally, the laws of this non-Christian nation, keep that in mind when you go look at what Obama's talking, and it's all over the world on YouTube. What? The contributions of the Moors, he'll just say Muslims, to America, and he goes immediately to Article 11. Why did he pick that article? Because it lets you know this is a non-Christian country, contrary to the concepts that you've been told. All right? So there are, strictly speaking, no Moroccan laws relating to citizenship of Moorish subjects in Morocco. The fundamental laws of this non-Christian country are based entirely on the Islamic code, no part of which treats of the subject of citizenship. And you notice they don't teach that in the schools. There are, however, numerous treaties and conventions between the various Christian countries and the Moorish Empire. How come nobody talks about that? How come they act like they don't know what you're talking about? Remember, this is their record. The Moorish Empire, by means of which citizenship in this country is defined. What country? They call the United States a country? It's really Morocco, but they're talking United States jurisdiction. You see the point? All right. But as I understand from the above acknowledged instructions that it is not the desire of the department to call for a report on such lines. They don't want to make the report public. Get the whole point? But they're discussing it in brief. I will therefore confine these remarks to general conditions existing, which may possibly be of some use in connection with the information desired. What is the subject matter? What's the affirmative response to the Secretary of State of the United States? 1. Citizenship in Morocco may be said to be governed by the laws pertaining to the same in other countries. We talk about the fundamental universal principles of jus soli and jus sanguinis, distinguishing nationals from people who are naturalized, though they both have classifications of citizenship. So you're talking about national, citizen, subject, alien classifications. Are we clear? Now, so citizenship in Morocco is said to be governed by the laws pertaining to the same in other countries, with the exception that all persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protection are considered ipso jure as Moorish subjects. That means you got to prove that you're not Moorish, whether you got a nationality card or not. You got to prove that you ain't. Ipso jure is a legal term which means as the law stands, anywhere in the world, as the law stands, you're Moorish. Now prove you ain't. That's United States law. How come no one discusses this, including the so-called black scholars? Why? It's not in their economic, political interest. Because their clubs belong to Rome. They're overseers. This is why Obama released that Masonic secret in Egypt. Capital Dominion of the Moorish Empire, chapter 47. You gotta pay attention to small things. Don't overlook them. Now, and look as it continues, right? Now consider the ens legis operation, i.e. the 14th Amendment.
Can I make a comment before you continue?
Let me finish this, then make the comment. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Give him the mic, give him the mic.
Give him the mic, give him the mic, give him the mic.
Yeah, right to it.
Mic right there.
Now,
Go ahead.
in international law, is called, they call it, and this is misnomer, this is what it's called, the acquisition of nationality,
Exactly.
which is incorrect, because nationality is not acquired,
It
all
can't
right? It's called the acquisition of nationality. One of the means in international law, what they have under the acquisition of nationality is subjugation. So when what he's talking about, ipso jure, when you can't prove your foreign citizenship, that nation state, all right, under international law through the means of subjugation,
Yes.
all right? So they're subjugating them under Moroccan law, all right? Because they can't prove their foreign citizenship. That's called but they call it international law, acquisition of nationality. So what they do in international law is they interchange nationality with citizenship as though they have the same meaning. That's
They
why I
don't.
wanted to
You know, you're
interject
exactly
there.
correct.
They don't. So that's why I wanted to interject that.
Exactly.
Because they need to be clear, all right? On that.
Good. Thank you, Brother Dula. That's what etymology does for you. It works in every branch of life, not just with linguistics. You do all research with that principle. That's why they don't teach etymology. Now, and look at number 2 and 3, and look what's so obvious. 2 and 3, and consider the 14th Amendment and the closing of the Bureau of Refugees and Abandoned Lands, which the official name is called the Freedmen's Bureau. When they closed that, and they created the ens legis transmitting utility for unum sanctum operations called the 14th Amendment Corps, or corporation person. And this is where they gave the corporation the quality of person in 1868 and registered all Moorish descendants as Christian property at the state of Delaware corporation as stock. And this is the basis of your bureaucratized peonage that's connotatively referred to as slavery or 14th Amendment straw man ens legis transmitting utility, which is in operation today. Are we clear? Now, all scholars know this, but they won't talk on this, which is obvious, if you understand, because it essentially is why the U.S. Corporation Company was established in 1861 with the coup d'etat and the Congress for the United States Republic operationally committing misprision and overthrowing the legitimate republic and converting it into the private hands of bankers under the secret Treaty of Verona. And this is where the republic was overthrown, and thus the corporate entity, what is known as the U.S. democracy, took on life. And then this is what is known as the Act of 1871, which is the ens legis operation to solidify the coup of 1861 in between time with the murder of Lincoln, who was the last lawful president for the republic. After Lincoln, there was no lawful presidents operating on the land at Morocco. Are we clear? This is the foundation of all your modern, what you call connotative bureaucratic slavery, etc. And as people are waking up today, and particularly Europeans who knew this all the time, who have now established all these sovereignty groups, trying to get the republic back, because they know the real history, and they're not the American you are. You know, all of these dynamics is why it's necessary for you to know the truth of the history, and also why Noble Raleigh did what he did in 1913 for the restoration of your lost estate, which is Morocco. And then you understand why persons who are part of the coup keep on promoting the Negro, black, and colored paradigm in order to disconnect you from the land. Are we clear? Now look at this. So Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized in or protected by another country having treaty relations with the Moorish Empire. Now you see the signal that Obama was sending when he talked about the Moorish Empire and the establishment and support of the United States in the first jurisdiction country to recognize the operations of the United States. Why? Because the United States is operating at Morocco. And most people still goes over their head. And for those who may be confused, just punch in your computer, what does Obama have to say about the Moors? And then read between the lines. Some of the information is absolutely direct, and some of it is with the expectation that by now some of you are semi-conscious, if not absolutely conscious. Do you understand? Because it is time. It is time. Now, I'll go directly from here in support of what Professor Abdullah shared with you, and go directly to the Pope's attorney's letter to Obama, which we talked about also on the way down here, to give you more insight and support of what you're being told. I'll give it Brother Mike.
I just want to say, what document is that?
This is expatriation. Look up expatriation and citizenship in the United States. And so you're gonna have to go to a serious library because it's not available in what you call your school systems in general.
Actually, Taj, if you Google that, it comes up. I got the whole.
Oh, yeah, you
document.
can find it, but I'm just saying that's because people are putting stuff up, but you will not find it in your school systems. By, which you understand, you're not naive by now. Anyway, so let me go a little bit. Notice this, Freedmen's Bureau, Bureau of Refugees, Freemen, and Abandoned Lands. Now, that's the official name of what you've been told in history as the Freedmen's Bureau. Or some people loosely refer to pieces of the 3630 parallel operations when you hear them talk about 40 acres and a mule and don't give you any more information. You dispense most of that information to our people, meaning that if you say 40 acres and a mule, 90% of our people will respond with some cognizance of that statement. But if you give them this, they don't know what the swell you're talking about. Because they don't have a background. They have no scholarship whatsoever. Of course, it's by design. But in a synopsis, Freedmen's Bureau is really the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands. Now, the Freedmen's Bureau was established in the year 1865 and was an agency of the United States War Department, having been established by the Congress. The actual and official full title of the Freedmen's Bureau agency was Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands. Neophytes and scholars must remember that in these days, 1992, plus that's when I did this writing, that the masses of the subjugated natural peoples of North America have not been taught or exposed to the true history about the North Gate, that's the cosmological designation of North America, nor were they taught about the land's natural peoples themselves being the Moors, the true Al-Moroccans. So Americans is just simply Al-Moroccans said quickly. Al means descendants.
You mind if I interject?
Yeah,
Oh,
just go ahead.
all right. I just want to add on to the Freeman Bureau.
Yeah.
In Washington Post a few weeks ago, there's an article about the Treasury Department Secretary Jack Lew and some other folks got together, and they renamed a building on their campus, the Freedmen Bureau Annex.
Yeah,
And that was just a few weeks ago.
interesting. Yeah.
And Jack Lew said there's a lot of interesting history behind the Freedmen Bureau. Maybe when people come to DC, they'll be able to check it out. But it's in the Washington Post for those who want to look it up. I just want to share that with the...
Good. And also we must take in consideration, the Manchurian families, plus others around the world in other nation states, including Russia, in Tianyi or China, etc., with the White Dragon Society, are putting pressure on them. This is also why a lot of stuff is coming out. And remember, there's a counter move taking place with other nation states who are enforcing Article 1, Section 10 of the American Constitution, which was subverted by the Sine Die action of the Congress in 1861, i.e. the coup, in reference that brought about the political format that they're operating on today under the United States Corporation Company for what? Corporate human trafficking and fraud institutionalized. That's what the U.S. democracy literally is and why it was established. Now, for the ignorant, they think it's a country. This is why you find it quite difficult, and this is back to what we were talking in the car, when people are making rebuttals or when they are in need to write writs and they really don't know that history, their language will cause cross-jurisdiction. And they know that most people, the masses, have no avail to what you call secret societies. And most who do have death oaths anyway. And so that automatically commits the masses to servitude because they don't know the real history, not knowing that their priests themselves are actually dark priests. They think they love Jesus and Allah and Muhammad and all that stuff. They work for the Pope. Do you understand? Sanctum operations. That's why the poor never get out. This is why the communities are always gentrified. This is why they take all their so-called bank accounts. It's why they take their houses with dead pledges, mortgages. They don't even know that mortgage means dead pledge. Contract is dead and they're the pledge. They're sharecropping and think they own stuff. And they're sincere, but they don't even know what's in operation. So they're not supposed to know these things. That's why we're telling them. They can accept it if they want to, or they can reject it, whosoever will. However, they're going to disappear them very soon if they can, so they don't inherit their estate. That's what the King Alfred is, Rex 84, Homeland Security, FEMA. They're going to try to eliminate the heirs because things are changing. Plus, the Manchurian family, so you understand the politics on the planet. The ancient families of Manchuria, who've been here with us for thousands of years, you call them Chinese. They're Manchurian. They have leased upon the world between 6, it's actually not quite 7, but between 6 and 7 million perfected assassins as a countermeasure to European operations of colonial dispensation on planet Earth. With the caveat, give it up or die. Still knowing that they have toys and they have the capacity to disrupt the planet. So there are negotiations going on. Are we clear? So unbeknownst to the masses who are not educated, they don't know that all their bank accounts are going to be taken under House Joint Resolution 2847, which is why we've been telling them for years, take their fiat out of banks. Because it's not your account, it's theirs. And they're going to take it. You know, so save yourself some trouble and don't transfer anything but what you're doing immediate in it. Meaning that if you are forced into the fiat system, only transfer enough to keep the account open and to keep your most primal operations moving. Put a penny more in it and you're in shaky ground. Because they're going to, not may, they're going to take it. And it's going to be devalued heavily. Are we clear? Lemons. You used to be able to get lemons like, say, 5 or 6 lemons for a note. Now it costs you like 79 cents a piece. In some places, 3 for $4. And people don't pay attention to those details. Go ahead, good brother.
It's fine. You was talking about the currency and then not putting the money in your bank account.
No, it's not money, but continue. Now, but I'm only saying this, let me correct this this is for everybody, and because we're on film. When you come to a venue like this, what is very important is for you to know that culture is in the language. And the reason why we're doing this, the reason why you're in this venue, because whatever you utter out of your mouth sets the tone for your future. And every word that comes out of your mouth is a prayer. And understand that the dark priests have been running this planet. What's taking place now is a transfer of the gods, or transfer of the guards. This is in the upper world and in the lower world. We're talking fact now. We're not talking about what people think or what people believe, we're telling you what the facts are. So you being an heir to the estate, it's important for you to correct your language, because every time you make a false statement, you're giving them mandate. In other words, you're giving them time. You must cut their time off. It is time. So you're not allowed to handle money, yet there is money. Currency is not money. Fiat, which is private commercial paper, and call it what it is every time you utter it. And don't say that you know what I mean. Now continue.
Okay, then as though that everything is about to be devalued.
No, it already is.
Okay, it's already devalued.
Yes.
Would it be best to use the fiat for purchasing gold and silver?
Of course, and other hard assets, which the wise are doing it already, but they're also making it difficult for the average person to make such transfers because they intend to eliminate you. All right, this is why they're doing the barium and the aluminum particles and viruses in the chem clouds that you see all over the place. And those are just the ones that they let you out. They got other nasty stuff in there. And so when you see people around you getting respiratory infections, They're not colds. They're attacking your immune system. This is another reason why don't eat red animals. If it walks the land, don't eat it, because you're being set up. But we know most people don't have enough strength or will to do that, and so most of them within the next few years are going to die anyway. Now that's the truth. Or they're going to be so terribly sick and their lives will be short. But this is because of the transfer that's taking place. But go ahead and continue.
So I primarily just wanted to recommend that we can buy small increments of gold and silver
Yes.
and replace it for the fiat. And when the economy does completely collapse, you will have something that you can trade with globally versus being stuck.
This is, let me come at you really bluntly. London and the Knights Templar and Knights Columbus, particularly in this area, are doing the best they can to see it doesn't get to the common person, or that you don't accumulate enough to actually safety net you. This is why the Manchurian family is coming to your aid. This is also why the dark priesthood want to set up a cashless society so they can still control. However, this is again why the Manchurian family is at that. But go ahead.
So I've recently seen an influx of our brothers from the East in this area.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak on whether that has anything to do with being able to come to our aid if we...
Did the prophet tell you that that will take place?
Yes.
Doesn't the Quran end with, this is the uniting of Asia?
Yes.
So now the firstborn, the primogeniture of the Asiatic family must be awakened, mustn't they? To save the rest of humanity, mustn't they? So as long as these primogeniture heirs keep thinking that they're black, they're killable, aren't they? Now you're just simply unraveling some of the major cause of the Morsi Divine National Movement. If you understand that cause, you understand why we're here. You also understand why he said, I'm a universal prophet, and my philosophy will be universal. I came to you Moors, my people, because you need me the most. Don't get it twisted. You don't own it. That's why that's said. Now you're being hit with the fire, but people who are still asleep can't see it. That's why we're here warning you. Even though the venue is small, you understand? But it is the estate of all of them. Now, in due time, and it's not going to be very long, they ain't going to make it through this year, through this cycle. No one will be able to deny this anymore. They will meet so much pain and misery. Many will die. Then they're going to be begging for someone to talk to them, but these venues will not be available. Which means the time's going to come that we're not going to be able to do this. Because you're going to go into an absolute open, although it already exists, state of emergency. Because they're going to block this information at all costs. Because it's over for them. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Meaning that they're going to stop, they're going to take off the gloves and stop playing nicey. Although we know what nicey means stupid, but what people think is nicey means they're not even going to play no programs. They're going, and don't go in no crowds where they're marching and doing that, Black Lives Matter. You go out there, they already got chills in them to set up so it can kill them. Because it's about airship. Everything is about airship. Everything about is the changing of the guard and the airship being converted to the rightful heirs. And this story is demonstrated in the book of genetics. 2 and 5 is what?
7.
In the cycle. 2 and 5 is what? 7. Called the book of Genesis. What did they call Empress Mataoka? They call Pocahontas, don't they? What was established when they murdered her at Gravesend? The aristocracy at Virginia. With a son born to John Rolfe. And then they named the river after King James. And that's the basis of the beginning of the overthrow of the nobles of the West. You. Therefore, isn't the rest obvious? That if you don't understand that history, you don't understand the politics? You comprehend? So, as we're talking, common people who have no dispensation of any secret orders whatsoever are being told the blunt truth without rhyme, without riddle, without allegorical story, without sign and symbol. You're told the truth bluntly. What you do with it is on you. You comprehend? But you must know it to begin to save yourselves and your families. What you do with it is on you, if you get the point. Now, so keep in mind why Rahm Emanuel, which most of you know, when he ran for mayor of Chicago, and you know Chicago's Mecca, first issue from his desk, according to the North Gate, North Star Circle 7, full first day of the winter solstice, December the 22nd, 2011, issued a proclamation telling you about the estate and everything, Noble Drawley and everything. And he's a Jew. First thing issued from his desk. Is it not? Then the next year, Obama and them go to Egypt and to the Alhambra and expose what is readily available to anybody that has internet. But how many people are even discussing these matters? Most people, it's like this, like it doesn't even connect to them. And yet it is not only their estate, but the estate of the entire human family that's at stake in that discussion. So you can understand why the Europeans are accelerating FEMA activities, the chemtrails, killing young brothers and sisters on the street with no recompense from what they think is lawful courts that are actually private human trafficking tribunals. And they're operating with false expectations. Just like when you send that information of the 7 points of jurisdiction, etc., which are principles of law. And they disallow it, send it back to you. Now we can address them, but that's another subject matter. But now, and so the deal of it is, when you're no longer naive, you will approach it differently. Do you understand? Now let's go to the Pope's letter to Obama and look how, if it wasn't for the Pope's attorney, right, writing this, and we removed her name, and we removed Francis, you'd think it came from us. You understand? I mean, what you know now. But you also know that it's contrary to the policies that they've been operating for the last couple hundred years. It is totally contrary. This is why you see a lot of Europeans mad at Francis, saying he's throwing their corporations under the bus. And then you see China, India, Russia, and 182 other nations systematically dumping them US T-bonds, which are actually human blood bonds. It is the foundation of the unum sanctum operations at North America, entirely based on us. Do you understand? So let's go to the Pope's letter and look what is absolutely obvious. Now notice, we talked about these things in different times. But as you can see, when people's concepts are not clear, that means they have not internalized the information, not that they haven't been given it, which means they're hearing it and they got to be baptized. They still got to be purged. You understand? Because it's not seated. Good point. But look at what is obvious. Now that's commentary, but this is just a little bit of commentary, and then we'll go directly into the letter, right? Now the original and de jure Constitution of the United States Republic at North America and its Republican form of government set forth and established at Article 4, Section 4, and keep in mind this is what the BRICS nations are enforcing now. That means Russia, China, and other nations are now cooperatively enforcing the American Constitution. To hide that, they call it a reset. When you hear the term reset, That's what they're really talking about. And people who don't understand are saying, yeah, the reset, they're going to determine the value of the currency. That's the kind of statements you hear. But it's really it's reinstitution of the gold clause that was overthrown with the sine die action by the Congress in 1861, and then the murder of Lincoln, who was the last lawful president. Then the establishment of the misprision coup in 1871, which is called the Act of 1871. From that point forth, private hands held all property, persons, natural, converted to the dead or corporation since 1871, and this is what is called the coup d'etat, that most people are not even aware even took place. Are we clear? This is what is described in the Clearfield Doctrine, which I've given that to you over the years, so you could use that in any law case. But if you don't understand what you're reading, if it hasn't internalized that is tied to the coup, then your concepts will be wrong because your presentments will have cross-jurisdiction language, which means you don't get it. You see? All right, so let's just do the synopsis and let's go into the letter, and then go ahead, feel free to analyze it yourself. But for instance, if it wasn't applied to the Pope's attorney and made public, and it was just general written information, you'd think it came from us. That's how much he's exposing. Are we clear? We're talking about the Pope, who's God. He is God of this world. Fact. Owns all corporations on the planet. All nation states are beholden to the Pope of Rome except a couple of them under unum sanctum operations. Right here, Washington, this area, people run around them tags with them 3 stars and don't even know what it means. That's the Vatican, London, District of London, and Washington, D.C., the Trinity operators for the Spanish Inquisition upon the world and world domination.
I got my tag, Washington, D.C. tag. This is flag and stuff.
Funding their own enslavement and don't even know. Anyway, so the original de jure constitutional United States Republic at North America, and this Republican form of government set forth and established at Article 4, Section 4, was secretly overthrown and converted into a foreign privately owned and for-profit corporation in the year 1871. See the Act of 1871. Now, that misprision-derived and foreign feudal law entity was styled as the United States Corporation Company. This is what Brad Pitt is talking about in the movies. But to the people, it's just a movie. And he was telling them a Masonic secret and true history, and it goes over most people's heads, but it ain't supposed to go across yours. You see the point? All right. Which is commonly referred to as the U.S. democracy. That privately owned entity created by acts of misprision, and all its corporate franchisees were and are ultimately and factually owned by the Vatican, being members of the Roman Curia. This politically and socially subdued truth is actually the source of the functioning jurisdictional powers that gives the Pope, quote unquote, of Rome, or the Vatican bishopric, the valid and affirmable authority expressed and executed via this impacting letter. This letter, titled Civil Orders, was posted on August the 19th, 2015, but is said, if this said posting is correct, the measured time reports that it was apparently sent to President Obama over a year ago, being July the 4th, 2014. The Post letter not only confirms that the United States, U.S., is operating under a corporation, but the Post letter also confirms that General Carter Ham will be heading up the new republic when it is announced. The announcement will be part of the Nessara announcements, and this current Pope is working for the light. Anyway, don't waste your time on the political circus concerning the U.S. election. I don't expect to see one. Anyway, we don't need to go any further. Let's go into the letter and do some analysis. Let's go into the body politic. Pope Francis sent Obama a powerful letter via attorney on July the 4th, 2014. We don't need to go into, because of time period, we don't need to go into the Kabbalistic strategy of July the 4th. Dog star and all this stuff, because they're dealing with cosmology. Because that's how the planet actually works. You know, so when these high priests, the reverends, and all these imams and rabbis pretend that true religion is not cosmology, you know they're lying their asses off. I don't care what they tell you. Tell them what the real power is. Therefore, you're supposed to know. Because the only way you're going to defeat the dark priest, you got to see their card hand. Do you understand? Anyway, now notice first paragraph who this is issued to. This means all these people ain't dumb. They've been given this directly from the president on down. Are we clear? Civil orders. Civil. Civics. Now you see why COINTELPRO operatives be saying, draw lead into civics. When nationality is all about civics, birthright's all about civics. Now you see why that emphasized amongst some COINTELPRO operatives. When you know the true history, you can easily tell COINTELPRO operatives. Meaning you don't have to believe anything. You deal with the math of everything. You don't deal with beliefs, you deal with facts. Are we clear? Therefore documents, because it can't be disputed. All right, so issue to all members of the domestic police forces, so they know, don't they? U.S. Marshal Services, so they know, don't they? The Provost Marshal, what's that? That's the military districts that most people don't know about. Members of the American Bar Association and the American Armed Services. Now, subject. The organic American states of the Union, known as the United States of America, major, he's emphasizing, exercising plenary power, civil power upon the land, that's distinguished from admiralty jurisdiction, maritime, the sea, hereby appoint General Carter F. Ham to lead and command the Grand Army of the Republic. Is he saying democracy or is he talking republic? Totally contrary to the coup, isn't it? And its successors under the guidance of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and with their full support. Should it become necessary to suppress commercial mercenary forces operating under the guise of being federal government agencies. He's telling you they're all frauds, that they're imposters. They're imposters, including but not limited to the Department of Homeland Security, the Federal Emergency Management Administration, the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, Inquisition Revenue Services, disguised, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, etc. General Ham shall assume immediate command and control of all armed forces and services owed to the United States of America, major. He's making a distinction between the legitimate United States and the corporate entity constructed under the coup. Now, a scholar recognizes that, but people who don't have a historical or law background would read past that, not knowing what they're reading. You see? Anyway, stationed in North America. So you can see the United States is stationed in North America. It is not North America. You do you see the distinction in the language? You notice how he's removing the connotative perceptions that he knows is established amongst the people? He is crushing the connotative perceptions. And shall join them under his command as the Grand Army of the Republic. All forces of air, land, and sea are to be employed. That's an admission that there's a civil war going on, even though the masses aren't aware of it. Any cost or loss suffered as a result of deployment of the Grand Army of the Republic, quote unquote, shall be charged as stipulated prior. So he's making reference to information that's not dispensed in his letter in relationship to orders that were sent to President Obama and the Congress, police forces, the Bar Association, etc., and the Provost Marshal. All effort shall be made by the Grand Army of the Republic to spare life and property while undertaking any action whatsoever within the states of the Union without exception. That means all operative jurisdictions under the United States, this operation is currently in action. Whether the public has been informed, which you're supposed to have been informed, matters not. It's already in operation. So why are you here? To be clear that you're conscious, not saying that you're conscious and demonstrating that you're not. Are we clear? All right. So all efforts shall be made by the Grand Army of the Republic to spare life and property while undertaking any action whatsoever within the states of the Union, without exception. The Grand Army of the Republic is uniquely enabled by these quote-unquote orders to operate on the land of the 50 organic states for the purposes of securing the lives and property of the American states and American state citizens. The Grand Army of the Republic is not a foreign army and is composed primarily of American state citizens. Now you notice how that is emphasized and not U.S. citizen? Now, if required to take field position, is that not military action? The local commanders shall make every effort to communicate the basis of their authority and reasons for their presence on American state soil. Is he making a separation between the corporate entity and the organic land? Absolutely. What is the masses' concept, the way they've been instructed over the years? They think the United States is a country and it's a private corporation operating on the land. The distinction is being made clearly by God, who is Pope Francis of the planet, God of the earth. He's the God of this world and the owner of all corporate entities. Now, to ensure a prompt cessation of hostilities. Why is he talking about hostilities? And a widespread understanding of the usurpations and acts of fraud which have led to any conflict. All parties must be brought to understand the nature of the federal government, the limitations of its authority, and their obligation to act in favor of the organic states of the Union. The Grand Army of the Republic shall continue to operate under General Order 100, known as the Lieber Code, extant from the pen of the last Republic President, Abraham Lincoln. He's giving you a history lesson that the masses don't get, only Masons get. No orders, executive or otherwise, issued by Barack H. Obama pretending authority on the land of the American states while operating as, quote-unquote, President of the United States Corporation, nor as the President of the United States of America, minor. Notice the distinctions that he's making, major, minor. He's talking republic, democracy. He's exposing the coup. Are owed any performance by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Ham, or any ordinary. All plainly stated grants of contractual authority evident in the Constitution for the United States of America, small u, remain in place subject to good faith, performance, and the accompanying obligations and treaties. How come these leaders and guys ain't telling these people about the treaty? But Obama did, didn't he? See how the Pope is telling you the real history, the Masonic secrets, and the foundation of this whole thing that's your problem? The Pope himself is telling you. So now these so-called Christians and Muslims and so-called religious people can't deny this because their God, their head, the Don, is telling it. But also understand that the White Dragon Society is on everybody's butt too. So you got to take that with a grain of salt. Are we clear? We're talking about the real world politics. Because bankers don't like taking flying lessons without parachutes. Assisted suicide. And it ain't gonna stop there. Anyway, Mr. Obama is the quote-unquote president of a governmental services corporation. Is he not telling you the real politics? Under contract to provide stipulated services to the organic states and is on their payroll. He otherwise acts as a foreign dignitary representing the United States of America minor. You must know that distinction, are we clear?
Yes, sir.
That also deals with the subcategory corporate states of, distinguished from the state republics and the state commonwealths, which comprise only 4. Are we clear? So you better know the distinction of the jurisdictional arguments. And why are you nationalized? To take you out of that 14th Amendment code by right of law and right of claim. Failure to do so is an abandonment of a state. This is why all foreclosures are listed as abandonments, are we clear, under unum sanctum. Now you know the game. Do you understand? So now if you've been told and you've ignored what the prophet told you, that's on you. Because one's going to try to kill you off anyway. So those who betray this principle, thinking that they're going to get a benefit, see, if I authenticate the birth certificate, you going to authenticate the fraud? Go ahead, play the game. Buy him time. Then he's going to kill you off as soon as you get the vouchers. Because he's not going to let you complete that cycle. Meaning they must be displaced. The dark priesthood must be unseated. They're not getting up on their own. In other words, the live God be knocked in the forehead. And if you think that you're going to get this back any other method, don't hold your breath. But if you decide to hold your breath, call the mortician ahead of time. Save everybody a lot of trouble. So they can send a cab over your house. You know, the long station wagon cab type thing. Anyway, so Mr. Obama is the president of a governmental services corporation under contract to provide stipulated services to the organic states, distinction, and is on their payroll. He otherwise acts as a foreign dignitary representing the United States of America minor. In neither of these capacities is he allowed any granted authority to impose upon American state citizens, endanger American state property, or command mercenary forces on American state soil, however veiled as federal civilian service agencies. We require the Joint Chiefs of Staff and General Hand to commence measures to disarm federal civilian agency personnel and to seize control of the vast stockpiles of arms which have been improperly amassed by the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, and other agencies employed by the United States. All capital letters. Notice that he's making that distinction between his legs, isn't he?
Yes, sir.
All right, the only federal agency allowed free egress on the land of the American states is the U.S. Marshal Service. Now you see why you do the carbon copies, the courtesy copies, as a standard of protocol. This is why we've been telling people for years, because we knew it was only a matter of time before this came out. But the people don't believe us, they only believe the preacher and the reverends, who they don't know are really the demons. Do you understand? Because they got the chandeliers, they got the $60 million planes, and the people think Jesus gave it to them, not knowing they worked for Pope Francis. But they didn't expect the dawn to turn on. You get
Yeah.
So this whole thing is being upset. And what's happening is you got rogue operations within the rogue operation that's being unseated by world governments. Meanwhile, the heirs of the estate are at the core of this thing, and most of them don't even know what's going on in real politics. And then others are discussing their beliefs. That means absolutely nothing. They don't even know that's mind control.
Oh, Jesus said it. And I had talked to Muhammad last week. I got his cell number.
You know,
Jesus made my peanut butter sandwich last week.
and all this kind of stuff. The priesthood is the one that murders all the prophets. The very priesthood, they got this whole thing set up. Do you understand? Anyway, so the only federal agency allowed free egress on the land of the American states is the U.S. Marshal Service, and then only when their personnel are engaged in their duty to protect the U.S. mail and sworn to act as constitutional officers. Now, mustn't you know civics to understand their limited delegation? Now you understand why that jurisdictional issue